JB Cycles here with a look at the 56-year cycle, and that's a cycle we can see in wars and global deaths. Here, going back to the year 1400, we see we had the war period starting here. Not so much here, War of the Roses, but not many wars or deaths. Here we have a war period. This one is a bit weaker, late 1500s. Then we have the 30 Years' War, big war period, and then another one here with the Spanish succession, and we have Austrian succession and the 7 Years' War, and we have the Napoleon Wars, and here we have the American Civil War and many others. And going further, we have the First World War, and then we have the odd one, the biggest war, the Second World War, does not fit in this cycle. It's almost as if the Second World War should have been in the 1970s. We see we have a little upswing in wars in the 1970s, and then we go down. So if this cycle still works, if human behavior hasn't changed, we have the next war period topping right now and the next 8 years. So we have the war in Ukraine, some unrest in the Middle East, and who knows what China does with Taiwan. It's a speculation, and the biggest danger is the unknown threats, what could pop up. So this is also a cycle in interest rate. As we see, we have a 56-year cycle in interest rate going back a couple of hundred years. Not that much here, around 70-50, and then we have high rates around 1700. Not so much at this cycle, and we see there's something going on here, and something going on here and here. So this is data from Venice and from Holland, the UK and the US. So current status here is just like wars, we should have interest rate going up. So this is connected with a 28-year cycle. This is the inflation-adjusted S&P and Dow Jones, and we see we have alternating pattern with every second here is a war cycle. So we have right now is a war cycle. The 1970s was a war cycle, and the First World War, and the Civil War in the US, and so on, and Napoleon, and going back this cycle for the stock market and wars and so on works in the 1700s as well. And in between here we have the typically markets going down or inflation going up, related to financial crisis. So this was not a war cycle, it was more a financial crisis here, and then again the odd one with World War II. This was not supposed to be a war cycle, it was supposed to be a financial crisis cycle. But the strange thing is that we had the financial crisis very early in the cycle. It should normally be at the end, but we had a depression in the 1930s, and then we have had the Second World War, which kind of should have been in the 1970s, according to this cycle. So it shows that we are not doomed to follow this cycle. There can be some variation here, and who knows, maybe this war threat the coming 8 years will not play out. So also we see in this 28-year cycle, we see typically inflation is going up, not so much here in the late 1800s. Not that much, just ahead of the financial crisis of 2008. But yeah, that's the cycle. It's also related to the 3.5 year cycle. But it's kind of a mystery to me, this 28-year cycle, because it's hard to say what causes this cycle to be 28 years or 56 years. If I was to look for some kind of cycle, I would maybe look for a 22-year cycle related to the solar magnetic cycle, because that one shows up in global temperature and in human fertility. But economy, stock market, interest rate follows 28 in the 56-year cycle. So the outlook, stock market adjusted for inflation, should soon show us weakness into the mid 2030s. And as I said, it will be a period with rising inflation, rising interest rates, and the possibility of more wars and political unrest. So, see you in the next one.